In the last 10 years, British police have investigated 250,000 non-crime hate incidents. Last year, one of my neighbours shared a video from a doorbell of the house being attacked. A quiet, elderly Hindu couple were home when a gang arrived, parked on their drive, and began attacking the door with sledgehammers. They managed to break into the front door as the couple screamed in fear. They were not put off by the couple being scared. They certainly didn't care that they were home. They knew this old couple was no match for them. These were dangerous men in balaclavas who came to violently assault and rob. It was challenging to watch. They called the police and were given a crime reference number. No police turned up. After all, this is the Met Police. They were told if they had a porch, it would have made their house less appealing and it would be harder to break in. Well, thank you. That's very helpful. Yet, the police can arrest a woman for praying in her head, or people for retweeting a rhyme or a meme. Hate crime guidance, published by Theresa May, said that perceived hate must be recorded even if there is no hate. So, criticise, question, or laugh about someone whilst mentioning gender, race, religion, or disability, or any other protected characteristic, and you need to be investigated. The guidance says that applying common sense is a non-crime hate incident because it is secondary victimisation. So the police guidelines, signed off by a Tory Home Secretary and future Prime Minister, said that no offence needs to be caused, no incident needs to occur, and the police must under no circumstances apply common sense. Great. Non-crime hate incident. It does not need to be a crime, no incident. Someone has to perceive it as an offence. I have to think it's offensive. And there's no need for an objective measure to be met. There's no measure of what is offensive. So if I say I'm a straight white male, but I think that lesbians will be offended by that joke about trans people not being lesbians, we don't need to find someone who is offended. There's no need for a lesbian or a transgender person to assess whether that was offensive or just something we used to call humour. A non-crime hate incident is a staging post on a 5-step journey from offence to genocide. And this is not a joke. Gordon Allport in 1950s wrote an academic piece attempting to understand the Holocaust. How do we get to a point where we push people into showers and burn their bodies just because of one characteristic? He believed it started with hatred and led to genocide. So this sociological model has been transposed onto policing. So retweeting a joke is, by this logic, the first step on the road to genocide. And the police have to intervene because none of us want to have a genocide. This is the logic Labour MPs apply when they say that pointing out the majority of child R gangs were Muslim Pakistani men could lead to an attack on a mosque. Clearly, the police know that this is insane because they record the incident and mark it up as a non-crime hate incident for your DBS check. They're chilling free speech, which is their aim. This is one of the key pillars of woke. First you define a non-existent problem. Then you divide people using it. Even better if it's a real problem that you can exaggerate. Then you persecute anyone who questions it. Heretics. Well, it's become fact. It's a bit like saying the world is flat, or God created the earth in 7 days. No, it was 6. Heretic, go to hell. Now you just get cancelled. The Chief Constable of Humberside and a College of Policing were taken to court by Harry Miller for giving him a non-crime incident for tweeting a rhyme about transsexuals and lesbians. Was it a limerick? Was it a rhyme? The police believed it was a limerick. Perhaps that's more serious. Chief Justin Knowles at the High Court likened the police's action to the Stasi and the Cheka. The police chief constable and the College of Policing were told they had illegally applied the guidance. He said that freedom which does not include the right to be offensive is not a freedom that's worth having. Well, thank God some judge still has sense in this country. Staffordshire Police put together a training day for hate crime reporters. And that same Harry Miller attended it. So the police are encouraging reporting. They're generating non-crime incidents. An attendee said that there were over 150 forms of unconscious bias and that all unconscious biases are hate. So the High Court has said that non-crime hate incidents are not a thing. They're effectively illegal to apply those guidelines. So the guidelines got changed, right? When a judge says that's not legal. Yes. So then the new ones got applied, right? No. The leadership of the police have been captured by woke ideologies. So questioning, criticising, or even mildly teasing any protected group gets you a knock at the door. Why do you think I don't talk about furries on this channel? Maybe I should. But the government will clarify this, right? No. The Home Secretary is currently concerned that there are not enough non-crime hate incidents being reported. We're now a country which likes to say it's free. We like to fancy that we have free speech. This has always been a bit of an illusion. My mother knew a priest who used to speak at Speaker's Corner, and you could pretty much say anything short of calling for harm at Speaker's Corner. But there's nothing to stop you being arrested when you leave. So do we really have free speech? Well, people are in prison for saying stupid things and bad things, so probably not. Yet we're also a country which has more people charged with what they've said than Russia. Yet some people are allowed to say something and others aren't. So if you call for an intifada in the same sentence as mentioning Muslim armies of the world, that needs to be interpreted. You could say a secondary offence needs to be committed. The police need a community representative to give a running interpretation of Arabic and the Quran to ensure that no one is leaning towards a crime or a hate incident. On the other hand, a Christian praying in her head is arrested for breaching an order on praying near an abortion clinic. Yes, in her head. What kind of idiots do we have in Parliament that the law did not ensure that people praying in their head are not offending anyone with their prayer? In story after story, stupid prosecutions led to acquittals, but this doesn't matter. The authorities can enforce woke thinking by scaring people and quieting them with a threat. and they can continue to falsely apply a law and ignore the court's ruling, because unless you take them to the High Court, you can't really stop them. So we have police forces which willfully ignore the law by following up on non-crime incidents. So why would the police ignore and willfully misrepresent the law? Because they're captured. They're believers in the Church of Woke. No one gets in trouble for following the herd. Yet we see that if you're famous, the police run a mile. Think of the hate fired at J.K. Rowling. I mean, the woman should be a left-wing saint. The only person I know who's given up being a billionaire by donating their money away to good deeds. I don't share her politics, but I certainly respect her desire to do the right thing. I believe she is a ridiculously successful writer who speaks truth to power. What did Ricky Gervais say? She sold so many books the Bible's scared of her. She's too famous to ban, so they simply snipe and exclude her and speak with contempt as she speaks common sense. She says things which others get a visit from the police for. Then you look at Lawrence Fox. He tweeted a swastika made up of an LGBTQ plus diversity flag. Someone retweeted it and was visited mob-handed by half a dozen police and taken into the street to make sure neighbours saw his embarrassment. Lawrence Fox was present, so this gentleman was arrested for tweeting, but the police had no interest in speaking to the author of the tweet, who was sitting next to them. What I find chilling is the phrase, "We're here to check your thinking." I'm sure you all saw a man being visited by the police, and someone who was introduced as a mental health professional, because the man said to his priest that he was concerned for Christians. Or was this a mental health professional? Now, either they're assessing him to be sectioned, which means he's a social worker, before the doctors turn up to sign the paperwork, or he's a social worker looking to interfere with the family. That's how seriously a religious man discussing the murder of a priest with his own priest was taken. This is capture. The police love to say that they're a service, but who are they serving? I grew up respecting the police, but it's becoming harder. Don't get me wrong, the average cop, I'm sure, means well and joins to do good. But when we see a female police officer assaulting people who, let's face it, were being argumentative, only months after she made the headlines for arresting an excessively drunk teenage girl who said she looked like the grandma she liked. We know there's something wrong with the quality of the police. It lacks quality control, appropriate hiring, and the application of common sense. We see an organisation where those being offended are more important than actual victims. However, when someone makes a complaint like hurty words made them feel scared, or that someone with a protected characteristic might not be safe at work with someone because they said something on X now. Oh, it's an offence, it's a crime, they're a victim. Oh, it's not a crime. They're a victim of a non-crime. Traditionally, you aren't a victim unless there's a crime. And a crime by itself, in English law, has to be a real harm caused to a real person. But with hurty words, I can be a victim before we've even assessed whether there was something happened. And by not actually prosecuting, but just recording it, you avoid having to have messy things like trials, the opportunity to defend yourself, or anything like that. And with hurty words, you could be a victim even if the words didn't apply to you. This is a charter for Karens. And then there are training courses to make sure those Karens know how to report and be offended, and to understand just how wide and broad are the opportunities to be offended. With 150 opportunities, there are more opportunities to be offended than there are genders. Well, we can allow this continued enforcement of non-crime incidents by a police who can't turn up to violent crime, but we at some point have to admit that freedom isn't freedom if you don't have the freedom to slightly offend people. You have no protection if you call for someone's harm, if you put someone at danger. But if you tell a one-liner, that's not a crime, and it's not a non-crime. It's a thing we call humour.